Hello, welcome back to Bagua Complete Basics. I'm Montague, head of the WTBA. On this lesson, we're going to be covering the Standing Qigong from Bagua. There's many benefits of the Standing Qigong, and it's very important to get into this right from scratch when you first start your Bagua training. Not only do we get many energetical benefits from our Bagua Standing Qigong, getting the energy to circulate correctly through the body and to build up a strong reservoir of energy to then progress into our form, but we learn about the structures and posturing that we need to be able to hold throughout our Bagua training, whether we're walking the circle or doing the Bagua form or doing any of the fighting drills from our Bagua. The principles that you learn from the Standing Qigong, how to hold your body, how to sink, how to hold the chin, your posture, how to structure the arms, etc. These will all lay your foundation for everything else that you're going to be practicing in your Bagua. Now, as I said in the introduction to this, by the way, if you haven't watched the introduction, please do. There's a link to the introduction to this series in the description of the video, as it gives a full explanation as to what I'm going to be teaching and the principles behind how I'm going to be teaching these lessons. So please have a look at that so I don't have to explain myself twice. Okay, so when we first start our Qigong practice and our Bagua practice, any of the martial art practice, we start off focusing on the most important thing, and that is the physical elements. There's no point in getting into the internal elements if you're not standing correctly. So at a later stage in your practice, keeping in mind this is basic Bagua training, at a later stage in your training you will get into more in-depth breathing exercises and, for example, visualizations that we can cultivate more energy to come through the body. But for now, in the beginning stages of our training, we're going to focus on that perfect structure that we want to be able to hold. So we're going to think about how to sink, how to hold the pelvis, where to place our weight, how to structure the knees, how to hold the shoulders, how to hold the neck and the chin, and so on, how to structure the arms. These are the most important aspects that you should be focusing on if you're just starting your Bagua. Of course, the breathing is very important as well. We should focus on the breathing and get that right, but just simple, basic diaphragmatic breathing. We're not going into any reverse breathing, prenatal breathing, tortoise breathing, or any of this other breathing that we can go into at a later stage. We're simply focusing on the most simple breath possible, which is a natural diaphragmatic breath, and just learning how to hold the body. So the first thing we're going to go through is simply how to hold the body, the stance. Then we're going to go through what are called the 8 palm Qigongs. So there's 8 palms, 8 individual palm shapes in the Bagua system. They each represent a different part of the body on the healing aspect. They also train your palms in how to strike as well. They don't really train your palms in how to strike as such. You have to go out and actually hit things in order to learn how to hit things and how to strike. However, they simply teach you about the correct structures and energy setup to then move on to the structured striking practice. So for example, I might be doing a Qigong like this, for example. Now, the mindset in that is putting all the energy here. So I'm strengthening my forearms for glancing blows. I'm also strengthening the backs of the palms as I'm doing my Qigong, for example. And each one of those has a different mindset to have to strengthen those portions of the forearms for the fighting arts. Not only for the fighting arts, but also for the healing arts as well, because anything that we do in our internal martial art training is also related to the healing arts. So whether that be healing for yourself or healing a patient, going into your doctorate practice. Okay, so let's get some basic structure happening to begin with. Let's just work from the ground up. So we're going to hold our feet just a little bit wider than your own body. About as wide, maybe about as wide as your own shoulders, like the outer edge of your shoulders, like so. Those of you following my videos, if you've done your standing 3-circle Qigong from our Taiji system, that's a little bit narrower. sort of more like the inside of your shoulders. It's about there. That's roughly how I would hold my standing 3-circle Qigongs. The Bagua Qigong, if you're used to that Qigong, take it about the width of your own foot wider to give you a rough estimate. It doesn't have to be anything specifically exact. I can put my foot there, or I can put my foot there. Just a little bit wider than your own body, as I say. So it's a good stable base. The reason that we have it slightly wider than in the Taiji Qigong is because the arm postures are a little bit more yang than in the Taiji 3-circle Qigong. So because they're a little bit more yang on the top, we give a more yang base on the bottom to balance things out. Okay, so let's get started. You can either have a look at this and then go and try and practice yourself, but it's probably best if you stand here in front of your TV or computer screen or mobile phone screen and go through with me to get this basic structure right in the body. Okay, so as I said, we'll start from the ground up. And I will say again, all the principles that we're going through here in our standing Qigong, you must memorize these and apply them into your body to then be able to take them into your Bagua training, such as your circle walking and your actual Bagua form. So if I say something about tucking the pelvis or sinking the knees, lifting the crown of the head, how to hold your shoulders and so on, you need to be able to apply that into your Bagua form as well. It's much easier to learn here, of course, simply because you're not doing anything. All you have to do is stand in one position. Say, okay, hold the shoulders, hold the chin, sink, tuck the pelvis. You can think about all these things because you only have to think about those specific things. Hey, look at me, I'm doing this. I'm in Italy and I'm naturally doing the hand gestures. So, as we go through the forms, the Qigongs rather, keep it in mind for the rest of your form. Because when I start teaching the form, I may make references to these points, but I'm not going to go into them as far detail as what I am now, because we're learning these principles now in the standing postures. Once you go into the moving postures, you have to then be able to hold those same principles, all those principles you're learning in your standing Qigong, you have to be able to apply them to the circular form and the circular walking, of course. Okay. So, standing with your feet just about as wide as the outer edge of your shoulders. Your feet should be parallel, so make sure your feet are pointing forward. Have a look at your feet, don't just guess. I see so many students, and I'll say parallel, I'll come over to them and their feet are turned out like this. So look down at your feet, have a look. They're not pointing forwards. Point your feet directly so those two lines would never meet. Straight forward. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to find what we call the sweet spot. And this is a balanced point in the body where you have to use the least amount of tension to hold your structure. These balanced points throughout the body, they're all throughout the body, of course. So we find them in the ankles, we find them in the hips, in the knees, in the shoulders, and so on. So we're going to start off down low in the feet. So what I want you to do is, as you go through, as you're standing in this Qigong, of course we're just bending the knees slightly to begin with. That's the first thing to do, just sink down into your knees. Okay, so we're going to find the balanced point, the lateral balanced point in your feet. So, this is obviously too far in, this is obviously too far out. Okay, that's the two extremes, quite easy to understand that. We want to find a point between that. Easiest way to think about this is just make sure that the weight in your feet is spread across the whole of your foot. So it's effectively in the center of your foot, therefore you should feel pressure down both sides of the feet. So right now, I can feel that my weight is centered in the middle of the foot. I don't mean middle from front to back, I mean middle from left to right, the lateral middle of the foot, of both feet. So, as soon as you let your knees tuck in just a little bit like so, you'll feel your weight pressing slightly on the inner edges of your feet. This is what we don't want. If you push your knees out too far and you're standing like this, now can you see my feet? See the inner, I'll exaggerate that a little bit so you can see it, but see how the inner edge of my feet now are lifting off the ground. So all the weight is on the outside edge of the feet. I don't want this either. I want to be balanced in between those 2 points. So, when you're trying to find these sweet spots for all of them, do it wrong one way, wrong the other way, and then find the bit between. So I'm going to push my weight to the outer edge. Now I can feel the weight on the outer edge of the foot. Now I can feel the weight on the inner edge of the foot. So I'm going to find that point just between it. Very simple. And throughout your Qigong, of course, you'll come back and think about that and think, oh, no, I've slipped out. Let's find that point again. Okay, the front and back sweet spot, the front and back center. What we want to find now. Do we do the same thing? If you rock your weight forward, just lean forward so the weight's in the balls of your feet. When you're in that forward position, like so, you should feel your calf and Achilles down through here flexing up. Okay, because obviously your weight's on your toes, so your calf muscles are going to flex. If I sit my weight back too far to the rear, right on the edge of the heel, the rear part of the heel, now I can feel all these muscles down through here flexing down through the fronts of my shin area. So, feel those two tension points. Rock the weight forward. You'll feel the calf muscles, all the back muscles tensing up. Then rock the weight back. You'll feel all the front muscles tense up to stop you from falling backwards, of course. So what I want you to do is find that point between the two tensions. So, too much tension in the front, too much tension in the rear. I'm just going to go what? That's where I want to be. Now I can feel my weight just centering. So I'm just letting my weight sit on top of my knees, down through on top of my ankles. Too much forward tension, too much backwards tension. Just find that portion where you're literally just sitting into your structure of your body. That portion there. Okay, so that's the front and back center or sweet spot that we're looking for. Okay, now that you've found those two, you could take a little bit of extra time to have a play around with those two as well, if you wish. But let's go on to the next section. So, we've found the sweet spot left and right, we've found the sweet spot forward and backwards. Okay, what we're going to do now is the pelvis area. So, this is an area very difficult for most people. It's a good idea, a very good lesson if you've got a problem with your lower back. What I mean by problem is just tension in your lower back. Is go up against a wall. I don't have any walls here, I've only got trees which are not exactly flat. So anyway, you can go up against a flat wall, or you can lay on the ground and just pull your knees up, laying on the ground. That helps as well. What happens when you go up against a wall is, if you do this when you sink down, notice how I have an arch in my lower back, you see, in the spine here. I don't want that. You'll have a natural little curve in your spine if your knees are straight, but as your knees bend, see how the lower spine tucks under? You see, it's flat, so it's not pushed out. It will only push out if there's too much lower back tension. So if you've got no lower back tension, when you bend your knees, your pelvis should naturally tuck under. That's just where it hangs, just relaxed, like so. If you've got tension in the lower back, it pushes out. So this is what we want to get rid of. If we have tension there, we need to work against that tension to stretch it out and relieve that tension, so that eventually you'll be able to just simply sit in the posture and the back will be flat naturally. You won't have to think to hold it under. It'll just sit and naturally hang under, like so. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, you may or may not have this problem. You may have a loose back. Someone else may have a tight back and it's pushing out. So you're going to do both, just like we did with the feet, to find the sweet spot, the centered point of the hip bowl. You're going to push your hips as far backwards, your pelvis, don't push your hips back like this. You're going to rotate the pelvis, like so. Notice how I'm staying where I am. When I rotate the pelvis, I'm not tilting my body, like so. I am only moving this portion of my body. So you could also do this in front of a mirror so you can notice that your top body is not moving. What you're going to do is just this region here. You're going to push the bum outward. Now there's a really big curve obviously in my lower spine here. I can feel all these muscles in my lower back flexing up. This is a good stretch to do before you do your training, just to release all the tension around here. So you've pushed it backwards as far as it can possibly go. You're feeling tension here, just across the lower back, around the sacrum, like so. Now you're going to do the reverse of that. Holding your body where it is, pull the hips under, like so. Now it's all hard here in the lower abdomen. I'm pulling from my core here. I'm squeezing my buttocks under, which is curving my lower spine this way. Now this is not how we want to hold our Qigong, keep in mind. This is the two extremes, one side to the other. And this will stretch out the whole lower portion of the body. So, pull that under. You'll feel your abs engage like you're doing crunches or something. Like so. Then relax it and push it back again. You can do this as a little exercise before you actually start your Qigong. But when you do it, you want to really feel the muscular engagement. Don't just do it softly, like this. I want you to push your pelvis back as far as you possibly can to really feel this engagement. If it's your first time, be careful right in the beginning, because if you do it too far, you can actually cause a spasm in your muscles. So if you're not used to the movement, just like not being used to any kind of movement, you could cause a spasm in the muscles. So just do it to what's comfortable and gradually build it up to a higher pressure. Squeeze under. Squeeze it in here. Push it back. Squeeze here. Squeeze it under. Do that a few times, as many times as you like, to really feel loose in this lower region of the body. Once you're feeling nice and loose underneath there, you're going to come back to the forward position to finish. So squeeze it right the way under, like this. Now see, that's far too much tilted this way. But then you're just going to relax. Like so. So now that lower spine is in the correct position. That's where it was, flexed, really pulled under. And it just relaxes. So now, hopefully, by doing those exercises to begin with, you should now just be able to sit in a natural position. Now, if you have a huge amount of tension in your lower back, which is quite common for a lot of people, you may find that during your Qigong, if you relax your muscles completely and just think totally relaxed, your bum will start to stick out again because of that natural build-up of tension throughout your life. You know, you've been, I don't know, sitting at a desk working or something. For whatever reason, you have a really tight lower back. So, of course, it's going to take more than just a couple of these to loosen up that lower back. All sorts of lower back exercise stretches will, of course, help with this as well. So there's many other different stretches, standalone stretches you can do. Okay, so if, for myself and other people who may be already a little bit loose, you should be able to just do this a few times and then relax. And your pelvis should just hang naturally down like so. If you find that when you think relax, your bum sticks back out, then you've got too much tension, so you're going to have to engage your core, but just engage it enough so that this happens. See? So you just... So we're not engaging like before, not engaging all the way forward. We're just engaging enough so that your tailbone is pushing downwards, you see? Just like so. So it's not pointing outwards, but it's not pointing forwards either. It's pointing straight down, like that. This is where we want our lower hip bowl. A couple of other things you can look at to know if you're holding this portion of the body right is to make sure you're not swaying from the hips, not actually pushing your hips forward, you see. Common error is when I tell people to tuck the bum under, the bum's out, I tell them tuck the bum under, what happens is this. See, I've pushed my whole hips forward, the whole leg, everything's gone forward, so we don't want this, of course. So that's why we do that little exercise first. Understand this little isolated movement. That's the movement we're looking at. We're not looking at this kind of movement with the whole body tilting. So a structural awareness tool you can use here is when you sink down, you're bending the knees. Oh, your knees, by the way, should be bent down so that they're roughly about the same amount forward as your toes. So if you just go up against a flat wall, put your toes on the wall and then put your knee into the wall, like so. Or you could get a stick or something like that. The stick's not actually that great because you may be holding the stick on an angle. So a wall, again, the tree's not exactly flat, but a flat wall in your house somewhere, put your toe on the wall, Bend your knee down so your knee also touches the wall, and then think, okay, right, so that's roughly how I want to be positioned, like so. Or you can say to yourself, look down at your toes. I can see my toes. You want to go up what looks like about an inch past your toes, because of course you're looking at an angle. It's a parallax error. Because you're looking at an angle, if you go in line, that means your knee's actually a little bit back from your toes. So just go a little bit further than your toes from where you're looking, and that should be roughly in alignment. Okay, so a structural thing you can look at here. You should have a flat line from here, from your hips and belly, and then it should curve out onto your hips, you see. Now, of course, this is not going to work dependent on your own physical shape. If you're overweight and you have a large belly, of course your belly is going to be out here. So this principle will not apply to anyone who has a large belly. It kind of still applies because you're still going to get an angle. It's just going to be more difficult to see, to actually physically see. So what we're looking at here is, see this flat line here, and then there's an angle change, 1, 2, you see? Now if I push my hips forward and I'm standing like this, you see that? It's one angle. From my belly to my thighs, it's not really one angle, but it's almost one angle, you see? So that's what I don't want. I want to push this in, you see? If I slam my hands down my front, they run into my legs, they run into my thighs. Someone could sit on there, you see? If I stand like this, no one's going to be able to sit there. You should be sitting so that someone could put their feet there and, you know, hold hands and stand on your thighs. So there's a nice angle there to your thighs. So that's a good little inkling you can use to tell yourself that you're not looking, not pushing your hips forward. Look down and think, no, that's no good. Okay, boom, like so. Okay, the next area we can look at with reference to the sweet spot is the torso area. So we've got the hips in the right place here. Now we're going to look at the torso. So another common area is people lean backwards when doing Qigongs like this. Your spine should be nice and straight when we're doing any of these Qigongs. See, like so. So I shouldn't be leaning forwards, I shouldn't be leaning backwards. Our main aim is to try to get the spine as straight as possible. The spine will never be exactly straight, it cannot be exactly straight. It's going to curve up through your neck, and there's always going to be a little bit of curvature to your spine. However, just try to get it as straight as you can. The back, however, should be vertical. So, there's a straight spine, roughly. That's still a straight spine, but it's not vertical. That's still a straight spine, but it's not vertical. So we need a vertical spine. This is one principle that does not apply all the way through your form, for example. There are certain postures in the Bagua form where we do movements where we do bend from the hips and bend the upper body forward and backwards. But in those postures where it does apply, such as a movement like that, that's an upright posture. So any of the upright kind of movements like this and so on, you should be applying that principle of a vertical spine. It will be very evident to you, it will be an obvious movement. If I say go like this, you know obviously you're not going to apply the principle of a vertical spine. But in any postures where it seems to be vertically upright, you should apply this principle of being upright. Okay, so sweet spot in the torso now. Alright, so we've found this sweet spot here, lateral, forward, pelvis, like so. Okay, now from here. If you lean backwards, see how I'm pushing my hips forwards and leaning backwards, you should feel all your abdominal muscles down through here flexing. Because if they don't flex, you'll fall backwards. You obviously have to engage your abdominal muscles in order to not fall backwards. So as soon as you start leaning backwards, you're going to feel this engaging. So there you know now you're leaning backwards. If you lean forwards, you're going to feel your lower back muscles through here engaging. So you know you're leaning forwards. So again, you've got to find that point, forward, back, find that point between the two structures where you're standing just nice and relaxed, like so. Now this is difficult to do if you're first starting this. It's sometimes the ab muscles, that's fairly easy to feel. I can feel that they're engaged. But the lower back muscles, you may already have a lot of tension in your lower back built up over the years, in which case you may not be consciously aware of when they're flexing and when they're not flexing. So the best possible thing you can do to see if your spine is vertical or not is do it to the side of a mirror. Just simply find a mirror somewhere in your house, look at the mirror here, go, yeah, okay, that's leaning back, that's leaning forward, and try to memorize what it feels like to be standing in a vertical position when you're doing this Qigong. Okay, now we come into the shoulders, how to hold the whole upper portion of the shoulders here. Effectively, all we do with the shoulders is we just let them sit where they naturally sit. The only time this doesn't apply is if you've damaged something or you have inherent bad posture. So a naturally good balanced shoulder should sit like so. So this shoulder is fairly well seated where it should be sitting, you see. It's not like this, and it's not like this. This is pulled back too far. This means I've got far too much tension in my upper back region, like so. This would mean I've got far too much tension across the pectoral and front of the shoulder, and not enough tension in the back. So it's not balanced, in other words, one way or the other. So your shoulder should sit somewhere between those 2 points. So again, if you go, that's fully forward, that's fully back, so somewhere just between those 2 points is where your shoulder should sit. Like so. It should just come naturally off the neck there, you see. You can see there, now there's a slightly rounded forward. There it's kind of straight. And there, now it's like my shoulder's pointing backwards to someone behind me. So I want my shoulder to be there. As a good example though, my right shoulder, if you have a look, if I totally relax my right shoulder, like so, that's where my right shoulder sits. Now if you can see, it's very subtle. That's where my shoulder should sit, naturally. That's where it does sit. Because I dislocated this shoulder a few years back and it's not quite right yet from my own training. So it was like this, it was really damaged. It was sort of sitting like this, very, very out of place. So through my training, I've been able to bring that back, and it naturally sits there now. That's where it is. But it's not quite there yet, it's not quite 100% recovered. That's where it should be sitting, see? So if you've got something similar to that, or you may not have had an injury, you may have just been sitting at a desk like this for years, in which case you will have built up too much tension in the front. So of course, in that case, you need to say to yourself, right, I know I'm not balanced. So my shoulders are too far forward, so therefore when I do any of my training, and not even just your training, throughout the day, when you're sitting at the desk, when you're walking around town, make a conscious decision to hold that balanced point, and therefore it will, your subconscious nervous system will reprogram itself to become aware that that's normal. If you're like this, your nervous system has told itself by this point, oh, this is normal, this is where I naturally sit, because it's been so used to that. So here, this feels awkward to stand. It feels like tension. But over time, you'll reprogram things so that this becomes the normal again. And then you'll feel your whole body start to function a lot better. Okay, so I need to pull this shoulder back just slightly, like so. Now I'm in a good balanced position with my shoulders, maintaining all the other principles we've already done. So you can do these exercises. Roll your shoulders, push them back, and just find that portion just between, that's where we want them to be sitting. So that's a pretty simple one, really. When we lift the hands into the different positions, that's when we have to start actually activating the back a little more. Simply because, let's say I need to activate my back just a little bit, just 10% or something there. Just to stop, for me personally, just to stop that little movement, I need to engage particularly my right shoulder just a little bit to pull that shoulder back. So this will vary person to person, how much you need to squeeze the shoulders back. Of course, if you're a very tight person, you've got your shoulders like this, and that's where you naturally stand because of tension in the back, then you need to do the opposite. You need to actually pull them forward, just like I was saying with the pelvis as well. So, hold your shoulders where they naturally sit, like so. When I lift my arms, I'm basically putting more weight out the front. Therefore, there's more tendency my shoulders will round forward. So you need to further engage the upper back portion and pull those shoulders back. See? So in any of these hand positions, you need to think, hold the shoulder back where it was. Don't think, okay, push the hands forward, but then the shoulders rolled it forward, you see, and now I'm hunching my back. So I want to engage the back muscles. You see? Don't slack off and go hunched like this. Pull it back, engage everything. This is how we want to be standing. Okay, last part before we go into the hands is the neck. The neck's fairly simple, although it can be one of the most difficult ones depending on who's learning this. So with the neck, we simply want to lift from the tallest point of your head, imagine like you're going like this, and then someone's pulling from that point and lifting you up, like you're being pulled up from that point of your head. So it's almost like you're stretching your spine, because you're pulling the pelvis down, like so, therefore you're drawing your tailbone to the ground. At the same time, you're lifting your crown of your head upwards towards the ceiling. By lifting here, this causes a tucking from the chin. I don't like to say just tuck the chin, because a lot of people get that wrong and just tuck. You need to lift, and this elongates all the neck muscles down the side, and it straightens up the neck portion of the spine. So this is what we want, like that. Pull your head back, like so. So basically we don't want to be standing like this with the neck tilted forward in an arch. You want to pull the head back, lift from the crown of the head, and sink. Okay, one last thing, the feet. Okay, have a look at the feet now. Just have a look at my right foot. Notice there it's flat on the ground. You see? It's probably better if you look from that side actually. So you can see the arch in my foot. There, that's just flat on the ground. I should of course be here, but I'm just moving that leg so that you can see the full leg. So I've got that knee sunk down. Weight's going through the center of the foot as we've talked about. Now, there's the foot just flat and relaxed. What it should be is just like so. Notice how it's just a little bit engaged, just slightly engaging the arch in your foot, like so, by scrunching the toes under. Now this should not be done with any tension. We do not want to go like this. You see that? Now you can see there's tension in the foot. We don't want this. There's relaxed. Just tuck those toes back just a little bit. Point them into the ground like so. You see, they're not placed flat into the ground. You pull them back so that the fronts of the toes sort of push down into the ground. Just a little bit, and then just relax. But just see how subtle it is. It's one of the most important things to get as a subtle movement. Do not squeeze. You shouldn't feel tension in your toes. If you feel tension in your toes, it's too much. As you're performing your Qigong, if you feel that tension creeping in, then just let your toes stretch out a little bit, like that. Let them out, loosen them up, and then come back into posture. What this has the effect of doing is it's arching the lower portion of the foot. Just in here, around about here, is kidney 1 in the foot. This is our earth point, our ground point. So we're making that point yin. Yin points attract energy. They're like a magnet. So when we make the point yin, like so, we're bringing energy up through the ground. Just a simple understanding of that. As I said, I'm covering mostly in these lessons the physical structures that we're worried about. I'm not going into details, in-depth details of the energetical cycles that we're working with in Bagua training. We're focusing primarily on the physical structures. But just to give you an idea, that's what's happening. We're pulling that up, making the point yin. So just imagine like you're sucking up, like so. You see, you're bringing something up through the ground by tucking that toe just in a little bit like so. I'll just show you from the front. Okay, so there's relaxed. That's how I should be. Just a little bit flexed, a little bit drawn in, like so. Getting some yinness coming into the feet. Okay, the breathing for this whole set is just natural, deep diaphragmatic breathing. As I said, we're not going into any other advanced concepts of breathing when we're first starting out. So, when we breathe, we must inflate this whole lower region. This is the diaphragm expand, or contracting rather, to inflate the lungs and pushing the organs down to make space for the diaphragm pushing down. So watch what happens when I breathe in. This whole area inflates, you see. You visually see the belly inflate more so, but the lowest back down here is also inflating. You will feel a slight filling down here as well. The most important thing here when we're doing a diaphragmatic breath is to not go, that's what we call a shallow breath or a chest breath. Now if I were to breathe down in my diaphragm, now there I lifted it slightly into my chest, but I breathed here first. There are some other breathing techniques you may have found in other systems and so on, where you fill the diaphragm and then gradually fill it right up into the top portion of the lungs. Nothing wrong with that. What we don't want to do, however, is leave this out of it and just breathe up here. Now I'm not using my diaphragm at all. When you breathe, you should always use your diaphragm. Regardless of what technique you're doing, the diaphragm must always be engaged to inflate the lungs. So, if I breathe up here, I'm using a whole bunch of muscles all up through my shoulders. This is going to create tension in my body, unwanted tension. And there's nothing here, it's a shallow breath. We want a deep breath. So, two key things to think about is relax the shoulders down and the chest, sink the chest, and inflate here like a balloon and around the lower spine, and breathe out. Obviously it goes back in as you breathe out. Now I'm just exaggerating, I'm doing a really big breath there so you can actually see that happening. And I'm making my breath so you can hear it. But in actual fact, when I'm actually doing my Qigong, like so, we'll go to that number 1 palm again. It's just this. This is me breathing now. So it's a very relaxed breath. You just feel a light expanding in your belly, a little bit of an inflation in your lower back, and total relaxation through the chest. So you're not lifting as you breathe. You see, your chest should not be lifting, particularly your shoulders should not be lifting as you breathe in and out. A good little training method you can do to really get this breath working correctly for you is simply place 1 palm on your upper chest here and 1 palm around about your belly button. And then breathe in and see which palm moves. So if I breathe correctly, I felt this hand move. If I breathe incorrectly, I felt this hand move. So it's just placing your hands there, it just makes you aware of the different portions of your body. So now I can think, okay, this didn't move. I didn't feel anything change here when I breathed in. When I breathe out, same thing. Nothing's happening up here. Now I'm feeling a whole lot of work going on in my upper chest. So this just makes you aware of it simply by placing your palms in those positions. So you want to apply this breath throughout all the 8 palm positions as we go through. When you're breathing, just relax. Try to make your breathing quite soft. Take a full deep breath and a full exhalation, but just keep it soft. Don't breathe out to the point where you feel like you're going to cough or something. Just breathe out to maybe 80% or something like that. And then when you breathe in, maybe to about 90%. Because if you breathe right to that 100%, that can cause tension in your body as well. So just breathe there. I could get just a little bit more if I really tried, but that maybe will bring some tension into my body. So I'm just going to relax. One of the main things we want to get from these Qigongs is how to relax the body whilst it's doing work. So as we hold the Qigongs, it's difficult. We're not just laying on the ground, breathing, which is a nice thing to do. I'm not knocking that. If you want to lay down on the ground, draw your knees up, find some kind of a position like they do in yoga, for example. You may wish to just learn about the breathing simply laying on your back. You can lay down on the floor. Again, put your hands, 1 chest, 1 palm on your belly. but do it laying on the floor, and then you can really just focus on the breath and totally relax. So that's probably a very good idea if you're having trouble with the diaphragmatic breath, is to get that first. But we're going into the standing area. So what we do in the standing area, it's a meditation, of course. Qigong is meditation, but it's a working meditation. It's not purely a mind meditation, such as when we're laying down, totally relaxing everything in the body. We're working the body whilst being in that meditative state. So, if we're holding some kind of difficult posture, let's just take the legs for example. So to start with, our legs are starting to hurt. If you're not used to this, standing here for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or half an hour, your legs are going to start to hurt. When you first do it, probably not, depending on your own fitness levels, but they will begin to hurt. Then you bring your arms into play. Now your shoulders are going to start to get sore. So there's muscular contractions going on. It's difficult to hold that stance. There's two things you have to do. One is physical and one is mental with regard to relaxation. We don't just relax the body, because of course you can't be relaxed whilst holding any posture, because you got to hold your body upright. So it's impossible to just relax your whole body. What we really want to be is in a state of sung. Sung, most people say it means to relax. It doesn't mean to relax necessarily. Well, it does and it doesn't. My translation of it, there's many different ways of explaining sung, but just a really simple way to look at it is simply that it means to relax the muscles that shouldn't be used for that work that is being done. So to be in as a relaxed state as possible whilst doing the job at hand. So if I need to stand with my knees bent, that's the job. So these muscles have to be flexed. I can't relax these muscles. I can relax them to an extent, so I don't want to flex them really hard like this. I can relax them to a point, but if I relax them too much, of course, I'm going to fall to the ground. So, and same goes with the legs. If I relax too much here, maybe they'll sag in, or maybe my neck will hang, maybe my shoulders will hang. This is more relaxed. Now I'm engaging my body, I'm engaging my back, I'm engaging my pelvis. I'm engaging a whole lot more muscles now than when I go like this. But of course this is much better for your body. So just to relax is not what we want. We want to hold the posture correctly and relax everything else that we're not using. From a mind state, we want to relax the mind and not let the physical tension of the posture that we're holding affect your mental state. This is what we're learning from doing our Qigong, because it's difficult. It's enduring. So when we practice, we've got to hold this position and say to ourselves, right, okay. And when we get really into this, we've got to do 5 minutes on each palm. Not when you first start, but as you progress through your training. 5 minutes, so that's 40 minutes of standing in one position. Well, 8 different hand positions, but the body structure doesn't change throughout those hand positions. So you're kind of staying in one position for 40 minutes. Your mind is going to go crazy. Your mind's going to be saying, oh God, this is awful, this is so difficult, my legs are hurting, my shoulders are hurting. You've got to be able to work through all that tension in your body and just go, just switch your mind off. That's what we want, ideally, from our Qigong practice, is to switch your mind off completely. Just think of nothing. Or think of the birds. Think of something natural that's surrounding you. I can hear all these lovely little birds chirping around me. That'll help me to relax. So if I just put my mind on one thing, such as a little sound I can hear, or you might be standing in front of the ocean, you might be watching the waves, something relaxing and calming. You don't want your mind to be going, when's this going to be over? And you're constantly looking at the clock. When's it going to be 5 minutes? When's it going to be 10 minutes? And you're aching and aching and aching. You just want to switch off. Go into a Zen state, if you like. A meditative state. So this is what we're learning from doing a working Qigong, a mind-body Qigong. If you do a Qigong which is easy, physically easy, such as laying down on the floor, and learn how to relax the mind, that's still very nice. It's very nice to relax the mind. It'll do you some good. However, it doesn't help you as much to bring that into your day-to-day life. So let's say, for example, you have a very stressful job, or anything that you're doing that is very stressful. If you meditate, the meditation itself is relaxing. So it will help to an extent, because it'll sort of balance out your day. You'll get a bit of relaxed time and then some stressed time. But it won't help you as much to actually stop getting stressed in that stressful environment. This, however, first few times you do this, well, depending on your line of work, for most people, this Qigong is going to be a lot more stressful than your job or than your lifestyle. So this physical work, this is going to be so difficult. If you can train yourself to relax your mind whilst under this stress of body, then anything else stressful that comes in at you in the day, you're like, oh, that's nowhere near as stressful as that thing I did this morning. It will feel like that stress will not affect you as much. You can take this to further levels, of course. Now, I'm in a very peaceful location at the moment, but you may do your Qigong practice somewhere where there's traffic going past, or there's people walking by, things like this. There's noise of some kind. So if you can again get into that Zen state and relax your mind, whilst there's those extra stress things coming into your body, then you're getting one step up again. You've got a physical stress on your body, you've got mental stresses coming in from the side from just irritating noises and so on, but still just going, I don't care. I'm here, I'm going to do my thing, I'm not going to let anything else around me have any effect on my system. I'm happy, I'm at peace, I'm calm, I'm not going to let it affect me in any way. This is what we want out of our Qigong. This is why the Qigong, the physical parts, must be difficult. So don't say to yourself, oh, well, what if I just stand up a little bit or do it like this? Now I feel more relaxed. If you want to do that, do the lying down Qigong, the lying down meditation, or even a sitting meditation. If you're going to do standing meditation, do it correctly and hold the body in these specific stances as we go through. Another thing to look at with reference to relaxation, this really applies to the term sinking, is we need to sink, obviously. Everyone hears this term, sink. Now, there's a lot more depth to get into when we sink, but again, we're just looking at basics here. So, what we want to do is, when we sink, I'm just going to use the thighs as the portion to explain this principle, but the principle of this applies to the whole body. So, what you need to do is feel the difference between a yang activation in your muscles and a yin activation in your muscles. Again, using the thighs to explain. Here, this tension point you'll feel down through the center. If I sink right down really, really low like this, and then I gradually start standing up, very, very slowly, but gradually start standing up, this is a yang activation of my muscles. The muscles are pushing me up. Now if I take that yang activation and then hold it and pause it, the muscles are still firing like as if they're thinking up. I want to go up, you see? Even though they're stopped and they're fairly relaxed, they're still thinking up, up, up. I want to go up. Now they're thinking down. I want to be going down, I want to be sinking. That's a yin state of the muscle. So if you do the reverse of what we just did, stand right up the top, stretch your legs out, and then gradually, very slowly, sink your knees down. When you get to the point, the height that you wish, pause the downward motion, because a downward sinking action will cause your muscles, a paused downward sinking action. So the downward sinking action is a yin activation of the muscles. It's like doing a chin-up. You can pull up, that's the yang, and then you're not just going and dropping down, you're letting yourself down slowly, but that's the yin activation of the muscles. They're allowing you to go away, but they're still holding you there to stop you falling down. So same principle here, and you're not going to feel it as much because you're not under that much pressure for your legs. It's not like a chin-up, which is really difficult. So you want to stand. This is why whenever we start our Qigongs, we start from the top and we sink down. So you can get into that mind state that I'm sinking. I'm going down, 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 down. When I pause, I hold that mind state that I'm going down, sinking. What will happen is, throughout your Qigong, because you'll get tension in your legs, because it's difficult, you'll get soreness in your legs. And so what will tend to happen is, because of that soreness, you'll want to stand up. You see, you'll want to get away from that soreness, which will actually make you feel even more sore, because you're going back to that yang activation in the muscles. So, what we have to do here is sink again. When you feel your muscles go, oh, this is hard, see, I'm starting to stand up very slowly now, oh no, sink. Okay, as you're going through this process of sinking, what you may find, what you should probably find, in fact, start to happen is a vibration coming up through the legs, a light shaking motion. When you feel this shaking motion coming up through your legs, this is a natural thing that happens to everyone as part of your Qigong. It's simply, well, it's two things. It's physical tension in the legs. Obviously, do anything, hold a plank for a while and you might start to shake if you're not used to it or something. So your muscles are physically shaking from the pressure. However, there is an added thing to it, because depending on your own body, you will shake for one or two reasons. You may shake because your muscles are physically really, really sore and they start to shake. But also I have a lot of people practice the Qigong and they may be physically very fit. So the leg muscles aren't getting sore at all. They're like, no, I could stand here all day technically, like the legs are not sore themselves, but they still shake. This is because they've got internal blockages in their body. So because of those energetical blockages in the energy meridians as opposed to the physical external muscles, even though their legs are not sore, they still get that vibration coming up through. So this is the ground energy trying to come up through the body and break through those blockages. So it's a natural progression that we go through as we're practicing our Qigong. So if this starts to happen, just let it happen. Allow the shake to progress up through your body, and over time the shake will tone down into just a light buzzing coming up through the body rather than a shake. When you feel this shake, usually if you're feeling the shake, you will be feeling sore legs as well as the energetical shake. So usually it's somewhere in the middle. You may have a slightly sore legs as well as some internal blockages. So you can have just internal blockages or just external weakness, but it's usually a bit of both for most people. So when you feel this vibration or shake start to come up, the tendency for most people, because of the soreness in the legs, the tendency is to try to get away from the soreness, to lift up. There you're going back to the yang state of the muscles again. You see, you're not sinking anymore. As soon as you feel that pain causes you to go, and you're lifting yourself now. You see, you're uprooting yourself. You want to stay grounded, stay sunk. This not only applies to physically standing in a position like this, but it applies to everyday life. Let's say, for example, you're, standing at a bus stop, or you're on the tube, the underground, something like this, and some kind of confrontation, a situation happens. Maybe someone's mouthing off at you, trying to be abusive, these kind of things. Most people will allow that external anger and tension to affect their inner rooting. So what tends to happen is you lift up. Because you're not comfortable, you're not sure about this thing that's happening, everything lifts up. This person now sees you as prey, you're getting tense, everything escalates, you see? If you can take that energy in and just sink. You don't have to physically sink like I'm doing now. This is just a physical representation of what's happening internally. Right now I'm sunk. I can be walking and still be grounded and sunk within my stance. But the easiest way to learn about these principles is through the grounding of doing the Qigong stances. At a later stage, of course, we progress on from the two-legged Qigongs to one-legged Qigongs, and then we take the other leg off the ground. So of course that's taking it to the next level where you've got a lot more pressure on one leg. So all of these principles that you're learning, they apply to everyday life. Not only martial situations where there's self-defense may be involved, but just any kind of stressful situations. Maybe your boss, you've done something bad at work, and your boss is having a go at you. You've all felt it, we've all felt that situation where something bad is happening, someone's having a go at you, whether it be physically abusive or just angry because you did something wrong at work, or you might be a young person and your parents might be angry at you. So any kind of situation like that, by where you lift up, you're uprooting yourself, you see? And as soon as you're uprooted, you're top heavy, you're not as grounded, and you're much less stable and much less able to deal with the situation at hand. As soon as you can ground yourself internally, you learn about grounding and rooting physically through these sunk physical stances. But it's not the physical rooting that we're ideally learning about in the long run, it's the internal grounding. So we learn these techniques to attain that. Stepped right on a thorn then. We learn about these internal. See, that uprooted me. Did you see that? See how I went up? Because I'm not used to standing on thorns, so I guess I've got a bit of work to do in my training. Right. I guess you should uproot yourself in the case of a thorn, otherwise it'll go straight through your foot. Right, where was I? Back to training. So we're learning to attain the internal groundedness through our physical external practice. So as I've been saying from the beginning of this video, we're focusing on the physical attributes of these postures in the beginning. Later on, we start to focus more on what's happening internally, more what the mind's doing and what the breath's doing. But if you can't hold your body physically strong to begin with, there's no point in moving on to those more internal aspects. Always start with the external, move on to the internal. So, coming back to this grounding, anytime you feel, particularly in your thighs, wanting to push upwards, like so, say to yourself, no, I'm gonna go down again. Sit down onto it. Imagine like something is trying to push you up. So the shaking is a great thing to work with, because if you feel that shaking coming up, what you can actually do is, okay, the shaking, I like to say to myself, okay, there's a shaking coming up, there's a pressure. Most people run away from the pressure by lifting their energy up. What I want you to do is crush the pressure. Sit down into it. It might hurt, it'll make your legs sore, but crush it. Just say, yeah, you're not going to have the better of me. I'm going to crush this shake. Sink down and sit down into that shake. Take control of it by sitting down into it. This will keep you in that sung state, because you're in that most relaxed state possible while still maintaining the structural principles of the posture. Okay, and then of course, this principle you want to apply to the whole body. So if I tell you to hold your hands like this, now I'm lifting, you see? Everything's lifting up, particularly in the shoulders. Now I'm sinking down again. So that everything I've just said about the thighs, we want to apply that to the rest of the body. So apply it particularly your chest and shoulder, upper neck region. That's another area where tension will come into your body. It doesn't matter so much in the areas of the body which aren't so likely to get tension in them. The principle should still apply to the whole body, but for example, standing here, you're not typically going to get tension in your belly, for example, assuming you're not leaning backwards. So there's not really a need to consciously sink the belly. You just, as long as you're breathing naturally, that should happen without thinking about it. So the two main areas are the thighs here, stop from standing up by sinking down, and then the shoulders as well, regardless of which palm position you're doing. We don't want the shoulders lifting, we want everything sinking. So it's like you're kind of going to fall to the floor, but you're using just enough tension to hold your body up in that position. Okay, coming into the palm positions now. We've got the body all set and founded. So take a while with all that stuff you've just learnt, really focus on getting all of that correct, and then we start bringing in all the different palm shapes. So we have 8 different palm shapes. As I said earlier, each one represents a portion of your body from a healing aspect, in terms of it's sending energy to that portion of your body from a health perspective. It's also representing a portion of your arms and hands for the fighting arts and also for the healing arts, to teach you about how to issue energy through that portion of your hand. You may be doing some kind of a therapeutic technique to somebody else, doing a certain movement, the way that we heal somebody else when we're doing, if you see someone doing massage and they're going like this, well, they're not a very good therapist, are they? So if you see someone doing massage like this, they're still moving from their center, you see, indicating that they're sending chi from the dantian and putting that into their patient. So all of this practice that we do will really, really help with any kind of therapeutic work that you may be practicing. So we're going to go through just the physical palm positions now. Okay, so there's 8 palms. Number 1 palm, heaven palm. Number 2, earth palm. Number 3, fire palm. Number 4, thunder palm. Number 5, wind palm. Number 6, water palm. Number 7 is the mountain palm, and number 8 is the clouds. Okay, so we'll go through each one of those individually. Remember, the body positioning, what we've already covered, just stays the same for all 8 of these practices. It's just the hands, the hands and the forearms we change. Okay, so number 1, heaven palm. It represents the head. So anything you've got problems with the head, or see bugs coming into the head, we can take care of this by holding our number 1 palm. Let's see if that bug doesn't come back. Okay, your wrists should be about neck height, like so. So your palms basically about neck height, like that. Your forearms are parallel to each other, like so. Your palms should be so you could hold a dinner plate on it. It's vertically to the sky. So they're not up like this at an angle, they're not tilted in. You should be able to hold a ball on your palm and it should not fall off in any direction. They're flat to the top, like so. Remember to hold your shoulders back, don't let your shoulders hunch forward, which we've already covered. So as we go through these Qigongs, even though I've already covered all the principles, each different hand posture can have a tendency, the bug's back, can have a tendency to cause certain problems. So for example, the number 8 palm, that's the most one where you'll tend to hunch your back. So you've really got to engage those back muscles. So if there's any little bits in there that you need to be aware of, I'll obviously re-go over those. But anyway, number 1 palm, heaven palm, represents the head, palms flat to the sky, like so. They're a little bit yang. This is a yang shape, just basic understanding of yin and yang. That's a yang palm. That would be a yin palm, a yin shape to the hand, or to the wrist rather. Anytime we do movement, there's yin and yang change in the wrists, you see? So you'll never see me do a movement like that and then go forward, because that would be a dead movement. There's movement coming from here, from the center, see, but this was dead on the end. If I'm doing movement, anything, I'm just making up movement now. But any movement that I happen to be doing, see how the wrists are flowing with that movement. So if I want to move that way, see, just simple, this hand's going to go yin, this hand's going to go yang. As I go back the other way, this hand will go yin, this hand will go yang. But if I turn this hand over, it might go yang and this one might go yin, for example. If this one's yang and it needs to do a yang strike, it might go yin yang, for example. It might do a little preparation for some, for example. So when we do the palm positions, if you have a yang palm, such as number 1, so that's a yang palm, the wrist is flexed like so. Number 2 hand, for example, would be a yin palm. Now, yin or yang doesn't mean it has to be, that's a full yin, or a full yang, or a full yin. Number 2, see, it's only fractionally yin. Number 1, it's only fractionally yang. It still means it's a yang palm or a yin palm though. So, if the palm we're going into is yang, the preparation to that palm should be yin. If the palm we're going into is yin, the preparation should be yang, of course. So therefore you get a nice flowing movement. So even though we're doing a static Qigong at the moment, we're not focusing on moving like we will be once we practice the circular form, but we're still applying those principles that when we move the arms, there's at least got to be some kind of movement of flow from the wrists. Okay, here's the number 1 palm in close-up, like so. You see, it's just vertically to the front, to the sky rather, like so. So that's how you should be. There's a little bit of a bend in the elbows, like so, but they are extended. They're not bent back like this. They've got a forward intention, like you're jabbing with the fingers, like that. The tension in the palms should be so that, you see, if I show that from the front, that's how your palm should be. And this applies to all 8 of the Qigongs. There's soft, there's dead, there's just a little bit of life in the palm, very soft life. This is as we would normally practice in our Taiji form, for example. Now, see the difference? It's just that little bit more yang in the palm, a little bit more flexion. This is how we hold the Bagua Qigongs. But you watch, it's not, that's too much, you see? See how you can see in here going all white? I think you can see that. See that? So we don't want that. You spread the fingers, also we spread them like that, not like that. You see, we're not pulling the fingers back like so, we're spreading them outward like that. So, I mean, I'm exaggerating that now, that's too tense. But you see how it's still a concave palm. It's not spreading backwards like this, expressing from here. The palm is still in a concave, circular type of shape. But it should be just, you see? So in here, for example, in the forearms, you're just feeling a light tension coming through the arm, not like a really hard flexed tension. So soften your arm up completely, bring just enough position to hold it, and then just that. That's how we should be holding the palm position. This brings a little bit more intention into the palms compared to when we do it very softly, as when we do it in the Taiji Qigongs. So we're emphasizing the palms a little bit more with our Bagua Qigongs, because of course we use the palms so much in Bagua for striking. So that's how we want to be holding the palms for all of them, whether we're doing number 1 palm or number 2 palm. There's still that little flex. See, there's the number 2. Number 3, that would be soft. That would be flexed. But you see, it's subtle again. They're always subtle. There's the number 4 palm. There's the stretched number 4 palm. Always very subtle throughout the whole thing. Okay, so as we lift into the posture, we start with the palms slightly yang, like so. So we're just sitting down by the sides of your body, like so. So the number 1 palm is a yang palm. Therefore, when the hands come up, see how they're scooping slightly, see? They're going slightly yin there, and then they're going to go yang. So there's been a change of state. They're yang to start, they're going to come up yin, and then flex yang into the posture. You breathe in as you lift up. This is the same for all of them. Breathe in, a little bit of an inward scoop up through the body this way, like so. Breathing in, and breathe out. In and out through the nose, diaphragmatic breathing like we've already talked about. Notice the posturing here is quite extended. It's not tucked in like so, it's pushed out to the front. because the elbows must be parallel, or the forearms rather, must be parallel, so they're not like that, you see. So you are actually squeezing a little bit inward. So from this area through here, you're squeezing inward just a little bit. But remember, you must still engage your back. So don't squeeze to let this happen and let your shoulders round. You must engage your back to pull the shoulders back and down at the same time as squeezing in from the front. So you'll get this kind of mild tension band around the whole upper body area, and this is developing what's called the power band in the body, and that's what we use in the martial arts to generate power from the upper body. Of course, most of the power comes up through the ground when we strike and so on, but it's transmitted through that power band of the upper body. So we breathe in, a little bit of a yinness in the hands, a little scoop in yin, and then thrust out yang. Now, when you first start, you can, suit yourself. I would recommend, if you think you're pretty fit, try 2 minutes on each palm. If you're an elderly person or you've got any kind of problems, maybe you're very overweight or something, you think you might struggle, just try 1 minute per palm and work yourself up, but try to evenly spread out, obviously, the time. As you're doing it, it's best not to stand in front of a clock and be watching the clock, because then your mind's on the clock, your mind's on the time. You don't want that. It's okay if you're doing a longer time to have a clock to the side, so just every few minutes you can just sort of gaze over and check the time, but even that's not ideal. The best situation you can have is to simply set up your mobile phone or something to just set off a light little chime. So to set it to 2 minutes or 1 minute or 3 minutes, however long you're going to do. So you can just stand there, you can completely switch off your mind, hold the Qigong as we've talked about, and then ding, you hear the little note, and you know it's time to press down and go into the next one. Hear the next ding and you can go into the next one, and so on. So, yin to come up, yang palm to hold. Okay, the pushing down is of course a yang movement because you're going back to that yang state. So again, like we've already talked about, if your hands are yang, I don't want to stay yang. You see, there's got to be a yinness. So you must go yin, there's the little yin movement, little slight lift, and then you can push down. So you would breathe in there, and then push down straight back to where you were. The palm attribute, palm strengthening and conditioning attribute that we get for the number 1 palm is of course, is the fingers striking out like so. So your intention is on the fingers, hence that little bend in the fingers like so. You would never strike with the fingers with them straight, you always have a slight bend. So there's a give, there's a spring, a suspension, you see. So the intention is on the fingertips as well as the radial bone, so the outside edge of the arm, because we use that a lot in the number 1 palm as slip blocks to strike down like so. So a punch might be coming in and you might slip it. So you're taking a block with the outside edge, a slip block, and striking with the fingers. So the intention on the palms, where you can sort of think where the power is in this particular stance, is on your fingertips here for the front of the hand, and then coming down through the radial bone of the outer edge of the forearm. Okay, the number 2 palm, it's a yin palm. So watch what the palms do to begin with. The palms always are in that natural position, slightly yang to start. So remember, because they're yang, they go yin as they scoop up. Now the number 1 hand, they're already yin, because that's the first move, and then they go yang as you push out. If you're going into a yin palm, there's an extra change. So you've got a yin movement here as you scoop up, but see, there's your yang movement, like as if you're going to go into the number 1 hand, see? It's like I'm halfway going into the number 1 hand, but then, you see, they roll over and extend into the number 2 palm, like so. So there's the lifting up, preparations, scooping them up. They go a little bit yang, and then they just roll over at the top and push outwards, like so. Okay, the number 2 palm, the stretch in the palm is exactly the same, as I said, for all of them, but it's flat to the floor. It's the exact opposite of the number 1. The number 1 was straight up. Number 2 palm is vertically down because it represents earth. Okay, so it's vertically down like that. Slight yin shape in the palms, like so. just as extended, so they're not any more bent. So there's number 2, there's number 1. So the distance away from your body is the same. But of course, as I've said, the natural progression of the elbows is squeezed in for number 1, and it's relaxed out. So the number 2 is a much more relaxed palm state than the number 1, naturally, because it's a more yin palm, it's an earth palm, so it's calming and relaxed and grounding. The earth palm represents all the organs associated with the center line of your body coming down through here. And of course the attribute of grounding of earth, which is to sink and ground the body. Okay, so we scoop up a little bit of yang, fold them over, and push out like so. The palm and forearm attributes, same as number 1, is striking with the fingers, only it's a palm down finger strike this time, so it gives you a slightly different intent. This is striking upwards, you see, like so, glancing off, maybe striking up into the eyes. This one is coming in a more slightly downward intention with the fingers, but it's still progressing forward, projecting out of the fingertips for this one. The forearm attribute is the opposite, so of course we have the outer edge, exterior of the arms, like so. When you're blocking with the ulna, it's not a very strong bone, so the only time we would use that in a blocking motion is like that, is a glancing blow. Never take a direct impact through the ulna like this, especially the center of the ulna rather. Bottom and top are okay to take direct impacts, but the center of the ulna is not very strong. But in this case, you're sliding, so say a punch is coming in, you're sliding up the inside of his arm and sticking your fingers into his eyes, something like that. So that's what we get with that one. Okay. So earth represents the central lines of the internal organs. Fingertips shooting forward. Exterior ulnar area of the forearm. This is the areas it's conditioning and becoming aware of power in those areas. Now this is a yin palm, so when we finish, we just breathe in and then we can push straight down. There's no need to do the yin move because you're already yin, so you can just push straight back down and finish the movement. Okay, the number 3 palm is fire palm. This is a yang palm, so the hands come up yin, scooping, just as before. But then they're going to, instead of going into the yang there, they're going to turn over into the yang. So that's your palm, like so. That's your classical Bagua palm, which we use as we're doing the circle walking typically. It's often known as the dragon palm as well. Okay, so this is number 3. So scoop it up, breathe in, slight yinness in the hands, and then as they start to come out and forward, they're going yang and pushing away from your body as you breathe out, like so. This is fire palm. It represents your eyes and everything associated with fire in Chinese medicine, of course. Physical attributes of this one, just the straight out palm strike. It's not necessarily just the heel, it's literally the whole palm in this case. The whole palm is striking. So you're striking with the whole front of the hand, not concentrating to one particular portion, the whole front of the hand and even the fingertips as well. So you may be striking in here and your fingers are going in the eyes, you could be striking into the neck with the fingers coming in behind the jaw, anything like that. So it's a front-on strike. It's just a simple palm strike. It's a very simple movement. But as I say, if you're striking the body, of course, then the fingers would just naturally, as contact comes, in the Qigong we still hold with that concave shape. We don't spread the fingers back. But if you're going to hit something with it, of course, naturally the fingers on impact will spread back, so the whole hand hits. Depending on what you're hitting. If I'm hitting a body, I'm going to spread the fingers back so that the palm just slaps in. If I'm, for example, hitting something where the fingertips may go into a crevice, such as the eyes or behind the jaw or the throat, then I may control it and maintain that concave shape in the palm so that my heel and upper palm has good impact power coming through, but also the fingertips have good penetration. So that's what you're looking at with this one. You're thinking just out of the whole palm and shooting out of the fingertips also. You see, so it's not just thinking about the palm, it's the whole front side shooting forwards. And the underneath side through here of your forearm is where we're conditioning. And that you can feel that physically because it's a very yang palm this time, you can feel that stretch that's coming up underneath those muscles. So you're getting that flexed up, just in case you were to slip through and take a block on that inner portion of your arm. That's where you're conditioning internally. This one's like number 2 in that the elbows are slightly rounded, you see? Not quite as rounded as number 2, but they're still a little bit rounded. They're not totally parallel like so. They're a little bit relaxed out. The palm should be as yang as possible without allowing that to happen. You see how this is going all creased in here? I should go yang just to about there. Any further and it starts to go white in here. I don't want that. Just in the same way that I said earlier about the palms, I don't want to stretch it so much that the tendons go white. So in the same way that we talked about the palm, you do that yang hand. So it's enough to feel a bit of a flex in the forearm and a stretch underneath, but not enough to bring tension through here, which will cut off the blood supply through to the forearm. Okay, so that's your number 3 palm. Oh, the palm position, the wrist is still the same height as the previous palms, like so. The palms are of course higher because it's up, so your palms are therefore in front of your face as you come through. Classically saying, it's the fingertips should be eye level is where we should be holding it. You see, so it's basically the same, but think fingertips at eye level to be really pedantic. It doesn't really matter if they're here or here, but I guess because the posture represents the eyes, by simply having that at the eye level, it's one extra little element that brings focus to your eyes as you're doing the posture. Okay, this is a yang palm, so to close off we have to go yin, little breathe in, and breathe out, and press down. Okay, coming into number 4, this is a yin palm, like so, slightly yin shape. This is thunder palm. Okay, so we come up with this, well, we do the same as before. There's a little yin scoop. You see how as they come up now, they go yang, a little bit yang here. So as they push forward, it's like, you see, they're going to strike like that as they come into the posture. So you scoop still, but lift it up with a slight yang intention, and as it comes forward, there's your posture. This is pretty much the exact same structural position as your standing 3-circle Qigong, for those of you who have done that. The only difference is that there's that little Bagua flex in there. So see, that would be my, for the starts would be smaller, for starters, that would be my standing 3-circle Qigong. Now the Bagua number 4 palm, I'd take the step wider and then just flex up the palms. And notice how when I flex the palms, everything else just, see how there's my, see if you can notice the shoulders and the forearms as I go into it. See how everything just became a little bit more yang without coming tension or lifting the shoulders, but everything's just a little bit more strong, more yang in the posture. So that's the difference between your standing 3-circle normal mother position and your number 4. It's just nice to have that reference for those of you already practicing the 3-circle Qigong. So that's that one there. We scoop up still, little yang, little yin as you breathe out. So remember, breathe in as you come up, breathe out as you come forward. So this is, what did we say, thunder palm. It represents everything down the left side of your body, all the organs associated with the left side of your body. The palm attributes here, that's obvious, it's the back side of the palm. So any kind of backward palm slaps, things like this. It can either be used like so, or in the case of, it's a bit more like the way you're doing it in the actual Qigong, is like that, is a glancing sort of a blow. So of course, the forearm attribute with this one is the whole back of the forearm, rather than either side, like the number 1 and the number 2. It's the whole back area, so both bones combined, rear portion of the forearm. So you'd be taking a block with the back of the forearm and then slamming the back of your palm up through the temple or into the neck, things like this. That's what we're looking at. This is what we're using, of course, in the very opening movement of your Bagua form, which we'll get onto later on. Okay, so that's your number 4. That is your thunder palm. Scoop it up, let the hands go yang, and breathe out. Push it forward. Your palms are again about neck height here. So your top finger is about as high as your mouth, like so. The forearm positioning, obviously, for this one is very different to the other 3 rather. So the first one was very much in, second one's a little bit out, third one's a little bit more in again, fourth one is very much out. See, just by the natural, it's more like a big hoop-like shape in here that we attain with this particular posture, like so. Alright, so still have your elbows dropped, don't lift them up like so, they're still hanging from the wrists, so there's still a downward angle to the forearm. You can just see there, just try to mimic this posture. It's a yin palm, so when you breathe out you can just push your palms straight back down after you've got to your allocated time. Okay, the number 5 palm, it's a yang palm, slightly yang palm, represents wind. Physical attribute of the body is your lower back, particularly your lower spine. So any lower back problems, this is your wind palm, this is the one representing that area of the body. It should be held at a height. If you pretty much place your palms, like your knife edge of your palm, this portion, right on top of your hip. So your palms are literally situated between your hip and your ribs, kind of thing, like so. And then just push it out. So it's like belly height, sort of thing. Like so. That's roughly where we want to be holding it. And it's quite extended from the body, like so. So it's not tucked in. Well, none of them are really tucked in. They're all quite offensive kind of movements. None of them tuck back. So the last one we did, the number 4 even, you see it's quite well away from the body. It's creating a hoop-like shape, like so. So they're all really roughly about the same distance away from the body. You see this is extended as well. Number 6 is extended, number 7 is extended, number 8. That's probably a little bit more extended than say number 7, but they're all roughly in that sort of realm. Okay, so where were we? Number 5. Wind, lower back, spine, particularly your lumbar spine. It's a yang palm, so we scoop up yin, and as you thrust forward, breathe out, and hold distance between your palms should be about as wide as your hip bones, like so. So as wide as your hips, like so. That they should be flat to each other, still with that concave shape. Don't flatten your palms, but they're facing each other. See, if I brought them together, you see only my fingers would touch. The palms would not clap together flat like that. They'd be like this because there's that concave shape to the hands. What we're thinking with this one is fingertips again, slamming through with the fingertips, but also the ulnar again, but ulnar and fingertips this time. The difference in comparatively to the, what was that? The number 2 palm, that was ulnar and fingertips, but of course that was more in a glancing blow from the top, you see, on an outer range. So it's kind of technically the same portions of the body, so we're still saying fingertips and ulnar, but it's a very different intention because the number 2 on the ulnar, we're lifting into the strike as we do it, you see. Whereas the number 5 palm would be like that, you see. So you see we'd be dropping down onto something, and it's still a glancing blow, but sliding across from the top down and then going in with the fingers. Whereas the number 2 is coming from the bottom up and striking in like so. But the actual portion of the body that's strengthening is the same, it's just that it's got more of a grounding approach rather than a striking up approach. So, that's done like that. So distance, obviously there's a slight roundedness to the elbows here, so they're not parallel, like so. It's a little bit like that, because that gives you your yang attribute to the palm. If I bring them in, it makes the hands yin. So like so. It's a yang hand, so you go yin, and push down yang. Okay, number 6 palm is water, represents the kidneys. You're going to bring it up yang, just a little, it's only a little lift this time, and push down. This is the same as number 4 palm change, number 4 palm, just like number 4, but just drop it down. So naturally the fingers here, as you can see how this, if I cross them, they're kind of going in an upward fashion. That's facing directly to each other, right? See how there's a slight, very, very slight upward angle to the palms for the number 4 palm. So the number 6 palm, if you just drop your palms down, but see how as I drop them, the fingers naturally rotate downwards slightly, so they're not still pointing upwards. So they're shaped like that. So the general shape of the arms is very much like number 4, but of course the intention is a downward intention rather than an upward lifting and forward intention. So it's still a forward intention, but with the downward dropping aspect to it now. So that's what we're getting there. So the attribute here, this is the same as number 4, of course, backs of the palms, backs of the forearms, but with a grounding aspect rather than a lifting aspect to the posture. But the physical portion of the palm is the same. So you hold that for the allocated time, and it's a yin palm. Now, because the hand is low this time, rather than just, you see, there'd be not really any movement there. So even though this is a yin palm finishing, I like to still do just a little bit of a lifting here. You see, just a little roll, a little backward roll like so, just so that I can push down. It just gives a better feeling of closing off the Qigong. I find if you come to here and just go, it doesn't feel like you've closed. So I like to do just a little bit of an upward lift and then push down and close. Okay, number 7 palm. It's a yang shaped palm, so we scoop up with the yin hands and push out. Think of this as the number 5 palm, but bent upwards, like so. That's what we want. And of course it's up high this time. So your palms are again back to neck height, so or rather your wrists are about neck height. So your palms are in front of your face again, like so. Palms are facing each other, just like number 5, but the intention this time is here. It's on the knife edge, like so. So the palm attribute this time is knife edge and the top portion of the ulna. So it's not the whole ulna this time, like we did before, like a glancing blow. It's like so. So you can either use the knife edge, like so, but you can also chop down with this upper portion of the ulnar bone. So that's the attribute that we're looking at striking with from a martial perspective. It represents the mountain, and the mountain on a healing level for your own body represents the neck and the upper spine. So any neck problems, tension with the neck, this is the best palm to do. You can also, I didn't mention that in the beginning, you can also do all of these palms individually. You don't have to do them in the set of 8. If you've not got anything wrong with your body, then just do all 8, because they'll just keep your whole body in good health. However, if, for example, you have a really bad tension point in your neck, you could just each morning just do the number 7 palm and really focus your energy into that portion of your training. So that's the number 7 palm. Mountain represents the neck. Scoop it up yin and push it out. It's well, nicely extended, a little bit of roundedness. The hands are extended as far as you can get without letting your hands rotate outwards. So if I come a little closer here, if I push my forearms too far forward, see how the palms start to push outward? Now they're facing the camera. I cannot physically make them face this way if I extend my arms. My wrists simply don't bend that way. So the palms must face each other. Therefore, there has to be enough bend in the elbows in order for this knife edge portion to be facing forwards, like so. It's bent right up like that. All the same principles as the other palms, just that light flex in the palms, but you should feel a bit of a stretch coming up through this portion of the palm as we hold that. So the elbows are a little bit dropped. So this one, more so than the others, is a little bit closer to your body to attain that palm to palm positioning that we want to get from that particular palm shape. Okay, this is a yang palm, so let it go yin and push down yang. Okay, this is the most difficult one. This is the number 8 palm. Represents clouds and everything to the right side, all the organs associated with the right side of your body. It's a spiraling palm. So the hands are scooping up yin as normal, and as they come up, they go slightly yang. It's like you're trying to touch the backs of your palms together like so. You can't actually do it. Well, I've never met anyone who can. However, I would say even if you could, if you were somehow, double jointed or something, you could physically do that. I wouldn't recommend doing that. You want your palms, I would say, aim for a 45-degree angle. You see, so there's flat, there's a 45-degree angle going this way. That's kind of roughly what we want to be looking at. But see how it's a curve, it's a spiral. It's not a flat hand turned. This is the only palm where the actual shape of the hand is slightly different to the other palms. So let's say, for example, that would be a number 1 hand, like so, and if I rotated it on the angle, that would still be a number 1 hand, like so, like so. I'll do it that way. There you go. So there's the number 1 hand. That's not a number 8 hand. That's a number 8 hand. You see the difference? That would be a number 1. That's a number 8. I'll show you to the front. You see there how it's spiraled? So there's a number 1 palm. That's a rotated number 1 palm. That's a number 8 palm. So the whole hand actually follows into that spiral rather than just physically rotating the hand. That's not creating a spiral, you see. You've got to rotate the whole palm into that spiral. So see, the little fingers are slightly curving around that way into the posture. So I would say the index finger, the long finger, and the thumb are still in the same normal shape, but the other 2 fingers are just a little bit wrapped around to help emphasize on that spiral portion that we're getting there. Okay, so to get into it again, we scoop up yin, start to spiral forward. The hands are, the wrist shape is slightly yang. As you can see there's that edge, that angle to the palm. The elbows are quite close to the body in this case, but still keeping this area underneath your arms open. Don't close it in like this, and that goes for all the palms. Well, you don't need to know it for the other palms because you can't exactly close this off in any of these other positions. But the number 8 palm, there's a tendency to close yourself off in here. So don't allow that to happen by drawing the shoulders back and extending the hands far enough forward so that you still have this space. You should be able to take your own fist and put it underneath your arm for this position. If you can't get it in there, you need to be a little bit more open in this region of the body for the structure. So that's what I want. Notice the shoulders. You see, do not let this happen. Squeeze the shoulders down. This posture has quite a lot of tension in the upper back region. That thing we talked about earlier, the power band, the squeezing back of the back whilst contracting the front to engage this power band in the upper body, it's noticed the most in this number 8 palm. So when we do this number 8 palm, it shouldn't be sloppy. It's quite engaged. You'll feel tension down through here, squeezing inward, whilst the back muscles are pulling back and down to get that to happen. So don't say to yourself, my father, when he used to teach this, he would just say, try to touch your elbows together. And that works if you're a very large built person, because there's already natural tension in the back because you're so largely built. However, and my father was largely built. However, I did it, first time I did it as a kid, and I remember going, well, but that's easy. I don't feel anything happening if I just touch my elbows together. But I hadn't realized, of course, when I touched my elbows together, I rounded the shoulders. So when it was pointed out that I needed to maintain this whilst trying to touch my elbows together, now I can't hardly touch my elbows together whilst maintaining that correct shoulder structure. The only way I can do it is to hunch the back. So I tell people, your palms, these knuckles here just on the back, should be just a fraction apart, like so. And the elbows just a little bit wider again. So they see the palms shouldn't be parallel, or rather, the forearms shouldn't be parallel in this one, like so. They should be just a little bit of an angle. So notice how the palms are slightly closer together than the elbows. So it shouldn't be like this, shouldn't be like this, it should be like that. Just a slight larger gap here down the bottom, like so. Physical attributes to the palms, obviously fingers jabbing, that's pretty obvious. So you like so. You've got three attributes in this one. You've got the fingers jabbing forward. You've also got the back of the palm, like so, but it would never be used like the number 4 or the number 6 where we slam into an object directly. It's a glancing blow. So you may use it, for example, he could be coming with a left punch. You could block it on the outside with that palm and spiral that with the fingers going into the eyes. Depending on the positioning of your attacker, of course, it could also be the forearm. So it could have been there on the forearm and into the eyes. So when you're doing this Qigong, you've got intention on the fingertips expressing forward, the back of the palm in a glancing blow, and the whole back of the forearm. So that, it's a spiral. So obviously, as I say, from here to here, all of that area, from there all the way down through the arm, is all being strengthened and prepared for striking. It's a Yang palm, so we breathe in and finish off. When we're absolutely finished, we take the wrists and cross them behind our back. Just relax the wrists on your sacrum, just like so. If you're a man, your right hand should be on the external region of the body, on the outside, so your left palm is touching your body. For females, the right hand touches the body, left hand crosses on the outside. Just bring your feet in a little closer. Sink down into one leg. Same, maintain all your Qigong principles as you're doing this. Don't let any tension come into your body, just sink down. Your left foot in this case is out at a slight angle from where you're facing. And then what you're going to do is, this just closes off the Qigong. It's called locking the gate Qigong. It just locks everything in, all the good work you've done. And it physically just relieves your legs from just stretching your legs out as well. So you're going to lift one leg up straight. Keep your leg flexed, toes pointed up, like so. So toes are pointed up, legs stretched. Do not stand up. Keep your standard leg bent, like so. Sinking down through that sweet spot like we've been doing in our Qigong. Stand it up and basically lift your leg as high as you can. This will vary person to person. You may only be able to get it to here. You might get it up to here. So lift it as high as you can for yourself, and each time you do it, you may get a little bit higher each time. Once you get to that point where you can't lift it any higher, that's when you bend the knee. So in other words, don't just bend the knee straight up like this. Lift the leg, let's say that's as high as I can get, can't lift it any further, that's where you bend the knee and tuck. See? I can lift it a bit higher than that, so for myself personally, I'm going to lift my leg up to here and then tuck, squeeze and drop down. When you tuck the knee at the top, the most important thing is to feel the very, very lower abdominal muscles engage. So put your mind on that. That's your dantian. That's the area, the main storage area. We have 3 dantians, but this is your main centered, grounded one. So this is the one we focus on when we talk about storing energy. So when I lift up, I'm stretching, getting a nice stretch activation down through here. As I tuck, I try to push to touch your knee onto your chest, but don't just do it like that. Go, see? Squeeze right in here, right in that very lower portion. Squeeze that in and pull your knee as tightly as you can to your shoulder without leaning forward. Keep your body naturally upright. Pull that in, feel that squeeze in your lower abdominals, and then lower it back down. Change your weight, sink down into that other leg. Same thing. Flex your foot so you feel the stretch coming up through your calf muscle, across the ankle, and up through your hamstrings of the left leg. Lift it as high as you can. Then tuck, squeeze. Don't lean backwards, don't lean forwards. Maintain a nice straight body whilst your wrists just crossed on your back. Squeeze that in and drop it back down. Do that 10 times. So 5 times on each leg, alternating legs. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10. Okay, do them nice and slow and controlled, breathing in as you lift up, and breathe out as you place down. Breathe in as you lift up. Squeeze, and breathe out as you place down. After you've done 10, just relax your hands out. And just, then you're done. So normally if you've been doing the Qigong correctly, you should feel quite calm and relaxed. And just take your time. Don't go straight to doing something, maybe stressful or something, and worrying about things. Just let that nice sensation sink into your body a little bit before going on to other things. So you may just want to, I don't know, if you've got a morning walk to do, take the dogs for a walk, go and hug your girlfriend, hug your wife, hug your kids, do something nice after having done your Qigong, rather than, doing your Qigong, going straight to work or something. Yeah, just to let it sink in a little bit. One other area, just before we finish this lesson, is as you're doing these Qigongs, your upper body should be okay with these Qigongs because there's 8 different postures. So as you're holding one posture, you may get a bit of tension, but by the time it's there, it's 2 minutes and you're changing the posture to the next palm position. So you're getting a little bit of a break throughout the Qigong. But the lower body is holding the same position throughout the whole Qigong. So if you're not used to it and you're trying to hold it, you may be physically capable of holding it, but you're getting some tension in your legs that's not wanted. So say, for example, you're feeling tension. Some tension is, you can't get rid of it. Like, your thighs, they're going to hurt because they're the muscles, they're the primary muscles that are holding your body up. So you've got to try to figure out what is natural muscle fatigue, just your legs getting sore from the work you're doing, and what is excess tension build up. So just try to work with your own body, listen to your body. Think, oh, that's just a good heat building up, push through it. Try to strengthen your muscles. But if you're feeling like some tension across the knees, for example, tendon tension across the kneecaps, this means that your knees are not used to holding a static position for long amounts of time. So by there being a bit of excess tension in there, there's not as much blood flow going through. So therefore you may get some excess tension into those particular joints, or in your ankles or your toes, or this could be anywhere. But if you're feeling that, let's say you're up to number 4 palm, so you've been standing there for a while now, and you're getting this really sore point right in your right knee. Don't think, oh, I have to absolutely stay 100% still like a monk for the whole Qigong. Nothing wrong with just relieving that point, just a bit, and then go straight back into it. Much better to slightly come out of the posture, the Qigong stance. Technically, yeah, you're breaking a principle by not maintaining that stance. However, better to break that principle for 10 seconds and then do another 15 minutes of really good Qigong, rather than staying in the position and then you're going to still have that tension. Your mind's going to be on that tension the whole time, causing the Qigong to not do as much good for your body. So you'll still do the same amount of Qigong, but it's not going to be as good quality. So effectively, if you feel that tension point in your leg or in your hip or your ankle, any point where it is, just change your weight to the other leg, stretch the leg out. Just give it a bit of a move around. You may need to push the toes, just, whilst you'd still be holding your palm position, or you could do it between palms if you wish. You could come down and then just think, okay, I'm just going to relax that ankle out a little bit. Just get that up. You might just hear a click or something, and then come back in. Okay, but see how while I'm doing that, I'm maintaining the state as much as possible. I'm not going going something like this. I want to try to maintain that peaceful meditative state that I'm in. So of course you're having to break it to some extent by doing that movement, but do the movement like as if you're doing Qigong, like a moving Qigong, even though you haven't learnt any moving Qigongs yet, if you're just learning off these videos, just like the beginning movement, that nice flowing action that I talked about. If you need to relieve some tension from one leg, just do it in a fluent manner. As you're doing it, then sink back in, get comfortable again, find your sweet spots, and then go forward into whichever was the next palm. So yeah, much better to do that and then get get a better result from your Qigong, rather than to think to yourself, oh no, master said that I must absolutely stay in this position without moving, and you can actually do yourself a damage if you do that. If you've got a bad knee or a bad ankle or something, you get that tension point and it gets worse and worse until it pops. So you want to release that tension point. Same goes for the neck. If you've got a really, really tense neck, you can go, okay, just relax it down. You could do that with the hands there, or again, you could do it between the palms and relax the neck, just wherever that tension was, just feel it out. You might want to roll your shoulders a little, just move around a little bit, and then go, oh, okay, now I can go into the next palm position. Lower back is a common area where you'll get tension, so you might just want to, what we did at the beginning, the little stretch, this one. You may want to do that, for example. You may be standing there, come out of number 4, for example, and then you may want to do something extra. And just relax your whole back. Just stretch all the muscles down your back. Roll your shoulders. Come back up, so now everything's better. Now when you come into the number 5 palm, you're going to enjoy that palm that much more than if you'd left all that tension there. Of course, as you progress through your Qigong, you should get to a point where there's no more tension in your body, and you should be able to do a 40-minute Qigong without having to stop and do all of those exercises between the Qigongs.
Okay, this is how the back should look during the number 8 palm Qigong. So we don't want to let this happen, you see? See how the shoulders have rounded forward and arched backwards. See how I'm pushing out of my spine. What I want to do is, this is incorrect, I want to draw that back and down, you see? Whilst squeezing in from the front. This is rolling forward. This is pulling it back, see? It happens in all the Qigongs. So let's take number 1, for example. Again, see, that would be incorrect. It's more subtle now because it's not as intense as the number 8 palm. But still, that's how I should be holding the back. Number 2 palm. See, the number 2 palm is much more relaxed in the back. Number 3 palm, it's a little bit more engaged. Number 4 palm is relaxed again. When I say relaxed, the shoulders are still drawing back, but in a very soft manner because there's not as much tension pulling them forward from the palm position. So that would be the number 4 palm. Number 5 palm, a little bit engaged in the back. Number 6 palm, a little bit engaged but quite relaxed like number 4. Number 7 palm, that's engaged. See, there's a tendency to let it go forward on the number 7, so we engage it back. And then, as I've said, the number 8 palm, that's the most likely, so you've really got to hold the shoulders backwards, like so. Do not let it lift. That's lifting, but also do not let it punch forward like that, and do not push into the spine like this. Just hold the spine straight. Engage the shoulders back and down and pull the elbows together.
Okay, so that's the end of your basic Qigong lesson. Keep in mind, that's the fundamental training of your Bagua practice, what we've already covered. So remember, as I said, it is most important that you remember all of these things and apply them into your circular form training and your circle walking training, and once you go a step on from there and start your martial practice with a partner and so on, striking bags, all of these principles still apply to everything that we do. So thank you very much. Stay tuned for lesson 2, where we will begin the circular walking practice. Thank you.